whatever, tire squeals, whatever, ambient noise. If they're in a cockpit or something, there's ambient sound in that environment. I would put the voice actors in that ambient environment, that type of thing. That I'm just doing that just to enhance the overall property. But again, I have no creative bit. When I do work for Japanese studios as a producer, which I do that as a matter of choice. Everybody knows what I do, and everybody loves what I do, so they're all happy when I make the product. Any other questions? Yes?
Yeah. Can you give us an idea of what's going to be coming out and what the channels and ideas are going to be?
What's happening is Turner purchased Twilight of the Cockroaches, Robot Carnival, and Vampire Hunter D. I assume that their contract begins July 1. They are in possession of all materials. I do not think they're going to put them on the air July 1. I think they're going to figure out how they're going to put them on. I am assuming that on TBS they'll be integrated into their feature film packages. I would assume that they would be playing late night, then not 8 o'clock, probably 11 o'clock time slot. I would assume that on TNT they would be playing on what they call 100% weird. I think that that's where Twilight of the Cockroaches is going to show up. I think they love that title. They love the film. I think that's going to show up on there. On the Cartoon Channel, they will be playing they have the most number of plays on the Cartoon Channel because we wanted to class up the Cartoon Channel and Turner wanted to class it up also with some features, not just Hanna-Barbara, Scooby-Doo Goes to Mars or whatever else they're doing. They wanted to class it up with some quote-unquote foreign feature films that they could play. When we sold it to Turner, we also had to provide them with Spanish language tracks because Turner is going to simulcast English and Spanish, which means that they will not only just play North America, they're going to play all the way down through Latin America. The area that they're playing on cable is like a phone book. It's like a block of text this big with every tiny little country, Belize, Honduras, Trinidad, Tobago, you name the country in that Latin American area, it's going to be playing. So we had to provide them not only with the English language version, but a Spanish language version, and in some instances, a Portuguese language version. So we're doing this polyglot interpretation of all this Japanese animation stuff. It's really funny because in Twilight of the Cockroaches, for example, it's called La Cucaracha. It's what they call the film. And if you've seen Twilight of the Cockroaches, there's a scene where all these cockroaches get drunk and they're singing 99 bottles of beer on the walls. They're like walking through this thing. And in the Spanish version, we just have them sing La Cucaracha. It's a really funny way to interpret the films in different languages. And if you see it in Japanese, it has a particular effect. If you see it in English, it has a particular effect. If you see it in Spanish, it's even wackier, and it gets to the point that I'm talking about. The animation should be in the language of the area that you're going to see it. It works perfectly well in Japanese, works perfectly well in English, works perfectly well in Spanish, probably perfectly well in French, German, and any other language it is, because in that particular film, even though it's live action and animation, the only characters that speak are the animated characters. I'm assuming that probably in August, you'll start seeing this stuff show. TNT will show the films, they have the rights to show the films, I think, 3 times in their license period, which is a 2-year period. TBS has the right to show the films 3 times in their license period. And the Cartoon Channel has the right to show the film 30 times in their license period. So the Cartoon Channel will show this probably once a month. Every time it's in Canada. TBS will probably play it once, each one individually once. They maybe do a festival, maybe do something else. The Science Fiction Channel has Lensman and Robot Carnival and Vampire Hunter D. And I don't know if they're going to cut them. I don't think they are. I'm not sure. There is some nudity in Vampire Hunter D. And there's a lot of violence. There's no nudity but violence in Lensman, and there's very little violence in Robot Carnival. So I don't think Robert Crumb will be cut. I do not think that Linton will be cut. But I'm curious to see what they do with Vampire Hunter, which I think they will cut the video final. I have no control over that. I sent them the versions, and it's up to them to do what they want. I suggest strongly that they don't cut them. And leave it that way. The goal is to continue on with trying to get the Lensman series on the Sci-Fi Channel. There's 27 episodes of Galactic Control. They want it. They want to air it. They are going to be airing The Adventures of Gigantor starting in the fall, which is a TMS license. Streamline is not involved in that product, but all of this stuff happens from the efforts of joint efforts from TMS, Streamline, and everybody to get the censorship by animation. And I assume that the way Lensman will be on probably once a month for the next 2 years. It'll just be on, every chance they can play Lensman, they'll play because they like it. That's a great thing. And the more and more the ratings go, the more and more people will say they want to see more. Probably be easier for them to come to the realization that they have to put the series on. So we're hoping that series will come on in once. Other than that, I have so many other deals in the works for television which I don't like to talk about until they're done, because if you know anything about fandom, it is so rife with rumors and innuendo and bizarreness that I don't even want to deal with it, because if I say something, somebody will misconstrue it and it'll be on some internet somewhere saying that, Streamline's in trouble because they're losing they don't pay people right, and they're going to go out of business and blah blah blah. So I don't want to speculate on the other deals until they're done and the truth has been accepted by the place we're sending them to. It's going to be fun. Robotech will probably be back on television through the efforts of Harmony Gold, All American Television, and some other people. It's actually playing now in several markets, and that'll help everyone. I think that in retrospect, if you look at Robotech now, it's primitive compared to the stuff that we're doing now in terms of dubbing and what have you. But that story is still really strong and really powerful, and it really makes an impact. If you've never seen Robotech, it's really good to watch, and that'll be back on. Speed Racers on MTV, believe it or not, and that's getting very good response. So there's this 1993 is that beginning of the silver age of anime. The first anime in America started in 1984 when we did Robotech for the first time. Now, 9 years later, it's the silver age, and hopefully it'll blossom because the people that are involved that really care about it. Originally, when Robotech was done, the people that were behind it, the financial people behind it, didn't care one way or the other. They were surprised that anyone wanted to see it and wanted to make as much money as fast as they could get out of it before people realized how bad it really was. So that's what's going on there. And it's just a matter of focus. That's all it is. It's a matter of focus. Okay. And unfortunately for me, I can't do everything. I do so many things. So sometimes I focus on certain things and I let other things slip through the cracks. And now I'm at the point that I have to let go of my baby and have other people do the kind of work I do. It's very difficult because it's really frustrating not to get it done in a way that I think is acceptable for what I'm trying to do. So, it's a major growth period for Streamline, major. And in the next couple of years, it's going to be critical that we continue to maintain this outrageous growth in order to sustain the momentum of anime in our estimation. Does that answer that question? Sort of.
Yeah, it does. And I'm sure we're going to question specifically. Since you mentioned is there a chance you might do any other series like this?
Well, what I'm doing with Lupin is there are, if I'm not mistaken, over 150 episodes. Probably, I think there's 156, and I think there may be more. OVAs and a bunch of stuff. It's a very important property to TMS. Very important. I was able to do Castle Cagliostro with them totally successfully, much beyond their expectations of success. Played it theatrically. Subtitles. They didn't want to spend $150,000 to dub it, make the print master, do the optical negatives and all that stuff. So we just released it subtitled, incredible reviews, put it on, put it in English for home video, remarkable sales. It's going to be this thing that's going to go out mass market. They'll probably sell 500,000 copies of it over the next 3 or 4 years with all this in the works. They're still hesitant about putting it out. I was able to purchase 2 episodes of Lupin, which I consider to be watershed or classic episodes. One is called the Albatross, Flight of the Albatross, which is a classic. And we're also getting one which fans have called Farewell Lovely Lupin. In Japanese it's called, I don't know what the title is in Japanese, it doesn't make sense anyway, so we're going to call it Farewell Lovely Lupin in our version also. So we're going to do those 2 as video releases, which we call anime classics. And we're going to use those 2 episodes as a pilot to get Lupin on television, because we think it's absolutely perfect for television. And in the meantime, we're picking up another feature film of Lupin, which is Lupin feature number 1, which the fans of the Mystery of Mamo, which is a great film, and it's very much like Monkey Punch's the original interpretation of the character of Lupin. So we're going to be doing those films to try to kickstart the awareness to Lupin. I would love to see Lupin on television, because I think that it could be as popular as The Simpsons or any of these other quasi-adult films. That one, Lupin series has adult storytelling, but it's wacky. It's like, Jerry Lewis's James Bond or whatever you want to call it. It's going to be really great if we can pull it off, because both TMS and Streamline strongly believe in Lupin, as well as some other titles which we're working on.
Those Lupin episodes, quite expand on that, are the 2 episodes that Miyazaki directed when he came back to the show. He directed those, so they were still in. Later he came out and said, yes, I did those.
Yeah, so it's obvious he did it. And we chose those because we felt that those were what I wanted to do with those particular episodes was bridge the gap between the Monkey Punch version of Lupin and the Miyazaki version of Lupin. Right, exactly. Monkey Punch's version of Lupin is what the basis of the bulk of the series is. Monkey Punch's version of Lupin. So what we're trying to do is wean people away from the Miyazaki approach by doing these 2 episodes and then doing the Monkey Punch feature. Hopefully by that time, it's just like when Sean Connery was James Bond and then Roger Moore was James Bond. You've got to wean people. So that's the goal of trying to just slowly turn Lupin's personality into the Monkey Punch thing, because the bulk of the Lupin stuff is the Monkey Punch stuff. So I had heard that Monkey Punch said that if he had done the Castle Cagliostro, that Lupin would have molested the princess rather than rescue her. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a funny concept. Okay, you have a question.
Well, I was just saying that last week when the Sci-Fi Channel showed the 3 movies, the D was uncut.
Oh, great! So fantastic. That's good. So at least they listened to me. They probably never watched it, so they didn't know. There's extreme violence. And yes, you have a question.
The Mambo version, there's a version out there that's dubbed. I don't know.
It was dubbed a long time ago.
Will
you be redubbing it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, we already have the voices of Lupin are set, and the voice of all the G-Men, all those guys are set now. So if you have a guy that's got a different voice, it doesn't work. So, and the version that was done, although it was journeyman production, TMS didn't even know that it exists. I mean, I asked them for it specifically. They don't know. They don't know A1 that it was done, and if it was done and they acknowledge that it was done, they don't know where it exists in reality. So I couldn't even get it if I wanted to even look at it. Just to take the dial. If I didn't have to pay somebody $5,000 to transfer the dial, I would have taken it.
Actually, the version is much good. I've seen.
Yeah, that's what I haven't seen. I saw about 10 minutes of it once, and I thought it was okay. But that was done in 10 years ago. So the style and technique of looping is radically changed.
Who are
The Lupin series. Lupin is played by a guy named Bob Bergen, who's one of the best actors working in Los Angeles. Unbelievably brilliant. He is. If I told you that he does the voice of Bullwinkle now, for all the Bullwinkle commercials, yeah, he does it.
You can't tell that it's not from the original.
He's incredible, and he is so good. He's the guy I wanted to Lupin all the time. He's a young guy. He looks like he's 10, but he's about 30. Handsome, slim, attractive, really like a cool guy. And call him in, and he never saw Lupin ever before. And I showed him the one sequence the cast of Cagliostro. I said, tell me if you want to do this. This is going to be a lot of work if I get this done. And I showed him the scene where he tried to fire that little grappling hook. And I said, watch this scene. Tell me if you can do this. And he watched the scene where it's like slides and gets up and runs and jumps and does all that stuff. He said, I think I can do something with this character. And when we started to do the filming, the recording process, by the time we got to that sequence, he had his personality down. And if you listen to it, the way we do stuff, I just go from the beginning and go to the end. And sometimes at the beginning, they don't sound as good as they do at the end of the film because they're getting into their character. And if I have time, I'll go back and redo the early lines to make it fit. On Cast of Cagliostro, I didn't have time, and I thought Bergen's interpretation was good enough at the beginning, even though it's kind of funky at the beginning, to make it work so that it all did work. But by the time he did that one sequence, he said, I think I can do this in one take. I said, you're not going to do it in one take. He said, let me try. I said, okay, watch it a couple of times. He watched it a couple of times. He took notes. He took like deep notes where he wanted to do like a grunt or a little yell or something. And he sat there. And the way we do it is we have like a big screen in this theater. I recorded mixing it in a theater so that I can see the screen really big. Most people don't do TV sets. I do it on a screen that the screen is like 12 feet high and 10 feet wide. It's huge, so I can watch the mountains and try to catch the stuff really perfectly. And the voice actors are in a little room to the side, and they watch it on TV because they're really close to it so they can see it. And this guy Bergen was just jumping and leaping and just doing all this stuff in this room while this was going on. And he was like, you're looking like this. And what he's doing here is what the guy's doing there. And he got every sound. I mean, it's amazing. If you see that one sequence and you listen to what he's doing, it's mind-boggling. And he did it in one take. And he stopped and he just went. The hardest thing for Bergen to have done is that thing where he's trying to get the princess to be, get out of her funk when she's there. And he starts doing things with the flower and all this stuff. Very, very, very difficult dialogue to convey in English. And the original guy that wrote that did not get it at all. So I had to rewrite that sequence live, like right in the theater, right while we were doing the mixing. And I said, give me 15 minutes, and I rewrote everything in that whole sequence live. And if you watch that, the sync is not perfect the way some of the other sync is, because I did it really quickly. But Bergen's interpretation of that sequence is absolutely magical. And have you seen the English version of Castle Cagliostro? I think that one scene is just so wonderful, the way he is strong and vulnerable and very sweet. And it's so great. And when guys can act, like Bergen can act, and he can really act. When you get good guys that can act, it's a pleasure to do that. The character of Jigen is played by Steve Hewlin, who's an actor that's on like Northern Exposure and all sorts of things. He's really good. The inspector is played by a guy named David Laval, who I think is wonderful. I think the inspector is great. He's really good. Who else? The princess is played by this woman that I'd never used before, ever. But she used to be a very popular dubbing actress years ago. And it was just a name on a list that I'd never called. So I was just auditioning people, and I called her. She came in. By day, she works at Blue Cross as an insurance processor. But in reality, she's just a really cool actress. And so I said, well, you want to do this? And she was able to get off work and come back in and do it. And she was a little rusty. She hadn't worked in a couple of years, but I thought she did a great job as the princess. Who else? Who else?
Count.
Oh, the Count. The Count is one of my favorite actors. A guy named Michael McConaughey. He's great. He's the voice of the scientist in Robot Carnival, the present sequence. He's the voice of Vampire Hunter D. He was the voice of Captain Harlock. He's the character in Fist of the North Star. I don't remember all their names. The guy with the blonde hair that dies, that's in love with Julia. He does an incredible sequence there when he's dying and guts are hanging out. He's really a very good actor. He was Captain EO. He's one of the monster grunts of Captain EO. But all these guys are like real actors. And then What else? Who? Goemon is Steve Kramer. That was the hardest voice to get, and I don't know if I got it right yet, interpretation-wise. Goemon is a really hard one because he's so Oriental, you know, in the body language and everything. But he says things that are in the Japanese quite acerbic. I mean, he's really saying stuff that's, if it's interpreted correctly, is funny. Like when he cuts the clothes off Lupin when he's burning. You know, this weird little thing. There's a weird, that one was the hardest character, and I don't know if I actually got him totally correct. But by and large, I'm quite pleased with the film. I think it works really well. Steve Kramer was in Robotech. He played Angelo Dante. So he's very good. That was a very hard film. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Oh, the Fujiko is that's Edie Merman. Edie Merman is great. She is a photography model as well as an actress, and for many years was the Silva Thins girl. Really like some skinny woman who weighs about 4 pounds. You know, so incredible voice range. She did what I think is the best dubbing of any person I ever saw do dubbing in a single take. And if you ever see Nadia's that we did, and you look at Nadia number 2, in which Jean is pleading with his aunt to allow Nadia to stay at their farm. There's a sequence in which the aunt is yelling at him and insulting, she's being like racially prejudiced and talking about this colored girl and blah, 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 and all this stuff. If you ever just sit and watch that one little sequence, you'll see the true art of dubbing, because we had to do it in one take because of the way the cuts were made. And it was about maybe a minute and a half worth of dialogue spread over 6 or 7 scenes, where the camera was in the house, out of the house, on her face, not on her face. It was dialogue on, then dialogue where the mouth was not seen, but the character was on, the dialogue off, then on and off. It was on, off. The way that the dialogue was and the amount of material that had to be said, you couldn't stop, punch in, start, do it, because the emotional content couldn't be there. You can't yell, and stop, and then yell at the same level. It's impossible to do. So we chose to do it in one take. Give it a chance to see that. Amazing. And very few actresses can do this kind of work. You could get Meryl Streep in there, but a lot of those people can't do this type of thing because it's a very specific, weird skill. Meryl Streep might have the best voice in the world and might be the greatest actress in the world. And probably she could do this. It's probably a bad choice, but it's very, very difficult to do that kind of thing and get it to sync. And these people train for it, and they're very good at it. But I can think of, there's a bunch of miscellaneous characters. Also, interestingly enough, in case you ever want to know, I'm going to try to do this as a contest someday. I've decided, since I'm now directing these films, which I now do, I was not directing the voice acting up until Vampire Hunter D. Up until prior to Vampire Hunter D, I would be directing the mix, but I was not confident enough that I understood how to direct voice actors, and I would hire a voice director to direct the dialogue. And what I kept doing was I was like frustrated because the voice director didn't understand the emotion of the actors, so I couldn't get, it was like going through one guy to get to the actor to get what I wanted out of them. And the director, the way the director works is I was not allowed to talk to the actor directly. I had to sit here and talk to the theater which the actor, and it just wasn't working right. And I didn't particularly think that Lensman was successful, but it wasn't great. Fifth North was successful, it wasn't great. The first one I did completely was Vampire Hunter D, which was better than some of the stuff, but it wasn't as good as it could be, and as good as the stuff that I'm doing now. It's because now I really understand exactly how I want to do it, and I'm more confident. I'm not as frightened as I was before, you know, just trying to force the actors to do stuff. And from this point on, I'm directing this stuff, and I now am putting myself in every movie that is made. So from Vampire Hunter D on, actually from Fist of the North Star on, I act in every one of these films. So the funny thing would be, at some point to have a contest to see if you could pick Mason's voice out of all these films. Some you could probably pick, some there's nobody who's too much to pick. But that would be the fun thing to do at some point. Any other questions that I can answer? Yes?
How long does it take you to dub something? Like, given a half-hour show?
Yeah, not yet.
The way it works is, on the average, good dubbing is accomplished at a rate of about 12 to 15 lines per hour. If there's that kind of stuff, you can do more than that. But if it's like, you know, my mama bought me a barrel of baked beans or some complicated thing with a mouth that's like really moving around, you do about 15 loops an hour, and that includes the search time, the shovel time, the rehearsal time, you know, the flubbing the line, oh, what's the line, oh, I've got, you know, that kind of thing. So, if a show like Nadia, for example, averages about 300 lines of dialogue per show, by 300 by 15, you get what? You get 20, right? So it takes 20 hours to dub it. 20 hours is 2.5 days of studio time. Then it takes another day and a half to fix it. So generally one episode is about 4 days to do. For example, Castle Cagliostro, on the other hand, took 7 days to dub. We were averaging about 10 loops an hour. They're very complicated. I just finished Doom Megalopolis, which is brilliant. Has anyone seen Doom Megalopolis yet? It's unreal. It's probably the most intense Japanese animation score, and it's very talky. It's powerful, really powerful. We're showing it in the theaters because it's a little bit. That one was a 45-minute film. It took me a full week to do because it was very hard. The mixing is always about the same amount of time because when I dub it, I know how I want to mix it, so I can sort of get the levels equalized when I do it. And that is only if I use the same recording engineer throughout. If I have to use recording engineer A on one day and B on another day and C on another day, each guy has their own style of recording. And oftentimes, the level that they put for a character on Monday may not be the same level that they put for the character on Tuesday, which requires more mixing time because you have to adjust for every cut. That's kind of a pain in the neck. But, on the average, a week to do an episode and 2 weeks to do a feature. Not counting the prep time and the other stuff. That's about it. Any other? Yes, good.
No, I was just curious, is what the original title of that was?
Which one?
Doom Megalopolis?
Japanese didn't even know what it was. They had about 6 different titles, but they called it in their press
kit.
Kit Doom Megalopolis.
Okay.
So that's what I'm calling it. But they had, when I originally made the deal with them, they called the film The Third Empire. Other people have called it. There's some other weird name for it, like the. It's kind of like the Dark Emperor or something like that. It's called that also. It's very good. It's a 4-hour miniseries that details a fictional account of events which took place, which caused the huge Tokyo earthquake of 1920, which destroyed Tokyo. And in this particular interpretation of that story, it deals with a necromancer who's trying to raise the soul of this guy Masakado, who was a major force in forming modern Tokyo. By resurrecting this guy's soul and freeing it from its grave, he thinks he's going to get like unlimited power that controls the world. And that's the gist of this particular film. And unbelievably powerful. And, intense, violent, sexual, very adult, but not pornographic. I mean, it's not rudeness, it's just very adult filmmaking. Oh, it's not like that at all. It's absolutely, totally sophisticated adult entertainment beyond anything that anyone has ever done in anime. It's completely sophisticated adult entertainment. Kids don't get it. There's not anything in this movie for kids. It is very, very, very dramatic, very complicated. It deals with incest and the just child abuse and the difference between science and the occult and how people get into this metaphysical aspect of stuff. And the third chapter, they have occult guys and scientists joining forces to go burrow under Tokyo to try to deal with this girl that's been kidnapped by this demonic force, and this little child, this 11-year-old girl, is being fed alive to the earth. The earth is like this network of like ganglia and just this pink flesh stuff, and this little child is being devoured by these things, and these guys are trying to stop it. And the demon is sending these shadows out, and the shadows materialize into little creatures, and they're like little baby faces, and they're eating the metal and eating these people. It's just, wow! And you see this, and the guy's like yelling incantations and throwing magic parchments with like scrawls on it. This other guy's blasting them with this machine. And it's, and when you see this, it's absolutely unbelievable. The animation is by Oz, which was made up of the animators that used to be at Dynax, who did Unzabonianas and the Nadia stuff, and they separated and they went and formed a new studio called Oz, and it's like their showcase animation, unbelievable, directed by Rin Taro, who is one of the classic Japanese animators. Unbelievable stuff. It is not girls in bikinis with the ray guns. It is like guys in suits and, you know, doing stuff in a very dramatic way. Very, 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 very intense. So that's when I think this is going to be really great. We're also going to do Crying Freeman, which is going to be the one that I think I'm going to have the worst nightmare for myself. It's very adult, very graphic. We just also got the rights to the Megazone 2-3 trilogy, so we're going to be putting those out. We also got the rights to a film called Lily Cat, which I think is really great. I don't know if anyone seen Lily Cat, but it's quite good. Yes?
How much, as far as the Megazone is going to be redone? Is it going to be fully redone?
Oh, totally redone. I'm not doing Robotech the movie. I'm doing.
No, as far as like part 2.
Part 2 is going to be. Oh, I'm going to do that all totally over
Okay.
again. I did that originally, but I'm going to do it over again because I'm going to use the same voices. If you're not done it, you know, I have to use the same voice for you and all the other stuff. And I want to do it over again anyway because I want to mix it there. Yes.
When the Megazone be coming out?
Just got a fax before I left on my desk saying that the materials were shipped from Tokyo Monday. So it'll probably be in Los Angeles Friday of today. And then I have to clear customs. I've got to get the materials and transfer them. Probably around Christmas time, or no, I won't say Christmas time. Let me say probably the spring of '94. Because I want to put them. I want to put the first 2 into the theaters first. I want to put Megazone 2-3 Part 1 into the theaters. And then I want to put Megazone 2-3 Part 2 into the theaters. So by about this time next year, they'll be out on video. And I think they're really classy. I think they're really good. Yes.
Back when you were talking about international stuff, it sounded like you were putting together a network of brand new films from scratch. Say anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends that are animation producers in Japan who bemoan the fact that the animation industry in Japan is really like retro now. Hence, you know, Giant Robo and Mecha Man Blade and Iron Man FX. You know, the ideas are drying up, and they want to do new stuff, and they realize that the way to get it is to get Western writers to come in and do it. So one of the producers I'm doing, Katsumi Nomura, and I have made a plan to produce new movies for the global market. By doing it, we will get funding from Japan. I will fund in the United States a certain percentage, and certain pre-sales will be made to European territories, similar to the way every movie is made. You know, but the difference is that if you're trying to pre-sell Dances with Wolves or something like that, it costs $40 million, or whatever the Last Action Hero costs X. When you're trying to do an anime and pre-sell, the costs are maybe $1 million for a 7-minute feature film. So the differences are quite dramatic. So foreign sales would be $10,000 for this, for that, but it all adds up, so then you get a nice chunk of change. That's basically how it's done. It's very complicated, unless you have all the connections and everything's in place and you have all the right programming things. Am I done now? Time to go? Okay. Okay, my panel is over. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you downstairs. And if you may have, because everybody wants a copy, but they don't want to put it on television. And if they put it on television, they're telling me that they only want to pay me $5,000 an episode to buy the rights to put it on television. And I said, you're out of your mind. I said, there's no way that you can buy a film of this quality for $5,000 half an hour. It's impossible. So whenever you wise up and figure out that you have to pay the Japanese a fair amount of money, and what they want is fair. They don't want a big amount of money. The Japanese want X. And so what I'm saying is you pay the Japanese X, and then you pay me X to dub it, and then you go on film. And I can't, $5,000, so we have to pay Saban. I said, well, this stuff is so far cheaper, you do that.